One of the things you're going to hear or notice in this video is the fact that the market system is a small replica of the universe. In a lot of cultures, the belief that something like business is an element of nature doesn't really register, since it's a creation of the human mind, or a very human activity. As far as our ancestors see it, wawahia, or the world is a market. There's also the idea that markets existed before human beings and are unraveled through the process of ituacha, which I'll explain in the video. Things on a cosmic scale reappear on different levels, and the concept of the universe itself reappears as the market on the accessible human level. So much of what humans create in the view of our ancestors is a replica of something that is remanifesting itself in nature. So I'm going to ask a complicated question, and as always, there are no wrong answers. I was thinking about this the other day, and I wanted to see what you guys thought as well. The question is the human touch separate from nature? Are the things made by human hands unnatural? Is a phone, earpods, a car, or anything like that a part of nature, or is it something separate because it is a product of the human touch or human imagination? I'd like to know what you think, so if you have an answer, go ahead and comment below. It'd be interesting to hear what you have to say about that. An individual who understands the 4 market days understands all things, according to Chukwu Okike. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why reciting and knowing the 4 spirits, or Moana, will give you the power to unlock the secrets of the universe itself. The 4 spirits are the core of all things in ancestral thought, and the foundation by which Odinani is built. They are the source of ancestral alchemy, science, medicine, timekeeping, physics, economics, divination, cosmic and universal order, as well as the destiny and nature of an individual. And to start understanding them and their significance, we must first start by understanding the meaning of the number 4 in Igbo numerology. This is Derek Afo and Nkwo with TheMedicineShell, and today I'm going to discuss Moana, the 4 spirits, also known as Ubochi Ano, the 4 days in Igbo cosmology. Now, if you want more videos on Igbo cosmology, or you've been watching for a while, go ahead and hit subscribe, as well as the bell icon so you can get notifications every time I post something new or when I go live. I cover Igbo spirituality, cosmology, culture, and history on this channel, so if this is a topic that's interesting to you, I'd be happy to have you as a subscriber. You can also support this channel by sharing this video with someone who you think would be interested in the topic. And the best way to support the channel is by joining the Patreon community at patreon.com/TheMedicineShell. Patrons get access to my 400+ document Odinani library, which is filled with rare books, articles, essays, and historical accounts that you won't find anywhere else, on everything related to Igbo spirituality, cosmology, and culture, all organized by topic, with a few recommendations here and there for ones I think that are essential for you to read. This is available to all patrons as a thank you for their support at patreon.com/TheMedicineShell. Patrons also have access to the 13 moon calendar, which tells you the 4 market days, or which market day it is on each day, by syncing to your Google Calendar. This is very important for prayer, ritual, and manifesting, as well as self-understanding, because your market day is when your spirit work is most effective and alive. Patrons can also join the Odinani group study, where we collectively discuss different topics in ancestral thought as a community, and the spiritual undertones of day-to-day life and the things we observe through experience. And finally, I've opened an Igbo language school at kedu.me. If you're interested in learning the Igbo language this year, kedu.me offers a group study hosted by a trained expert that'll walk you through the Igbo language part by part, as well as a day-to-day coach who will reach out to you and coach you in learning the language through casual conversation. All of this is designed to help you become a confident and fluent language speaker, whether you're a beginner and you know little, or somebody who knows a little but wishes to reconnect to their heritage by learning more and becoming fluent. We also have Kedu Kids for children, so if you have nieces, nephews, sons, and daughters, they're going to love learning on our platform. Again, this is Kedu at kedu.me, and with that being said, let's begin. To understand the significance and meaning of Moana, or the 4 spirits, we must examine Ano, or 4, in ancestral numerology. And to do this properly, we will begin with Otu, or 1. The beginning of all things is the number 1. In ancestral numerology, the greatest of all numbers is Otu, because it is Mbu, the ancestor of all numbers. Otu is akin to the Chi, and that is unmanifest, and in a way incomplete. And at the same time, Otu is like the singularity, or Atu, that all things come from. Like the Chi, Mbu, or Otu, is the builder of all that comes after it, and is therefore incomplete in itself. As you will often find in the Igbo tradition, that things which stand alone, or manifest the number 1, are seen as incomplete. An Oji that does not break, and holds as 1 is not considered Oji, and a boy is not a man until he becomes 2, through the act of marriage. Otu is the individuator, that which makes something individual in the universe, which is important to note because in ancestral thought, nothing is ever created, but rather it is divided out of a cosmic blanket of matter and spirit, known as Ajana. In the Igbo language, the word ke means create, but does not imply making something new out of nowhere, as it does in English, but rather something being divided or portioned out of an already existing whole. And this is exactly what Otu does, as a reflection of the nature of the Chi. The current phase of the universe we're in the Odachi Nebere account of universal creation, the Chi separating itself from Atu, or the singularity, is what started it all. And this brings us to our second number. After Otu is Abo, or two. Abo represents being. Once something becomes two, existence begins, as it is said that or this universe is a universe of twos. All things come into existence in twos, and when those two observe each other, each of them manifest. There is ala n'igwe, mmadụ na mmụọ, nwoke na nwanyị, and a myriad of other dualities give each other existence and thus enter existence together. Two is therefore the static state of actualization, meaning that I as a person am both madu and mo, as the body has left and right, and the face is a symmetrical, or hopefully symmetrical, union of two equal parts. Everything in the universe has a reflection that allows it to exist. Light exists because there is dark, and dark exists because there is light. There is sky because there is earth, and earth because there is sky. These two pairs come together to form a creative force, positive and negative. And when positive and negative come together, they create a charge, a spark or power. And this charge is the number 3, Ato. Ato is the force or energy created by the merger of the two. In ancestral thought, when something comes into creation, it comes into creation with a will and a purpose, and that purpose is manifest in the number 3. Ato is the number of motion and energy. It is the number of life and animation, the number of the Ikenga, and the three-lobed Oji known as the Oji Ikenga. It is through Ato that the will of Otu and Abo is done. Ato is the animator, but Ato gives motion, power, and force because it itself is incomplete, like Otu. It is imbalanced. The positively charged end of a magnet is incomplete without the negatively charged end of the magnet. And when they are separated, their fields will cause an attraction to each other for the sake of seeking completion. And when this completion is reached, it is through the number Ano, the number 4. The 4 elements of Igbo metaphysics are Eke, Orie, Afo and Nkwo, Ano. All things living and non-living are a combination of these 4 elements. The material world, or Uwamadu, is entirely comprised of these 4 elements, and all things are established, given form, path, and meaning through the 4 market days. Through the 4 market days, Chukwu possesses an all-knowing nature known as Etu, Chukwu's perpetual creative consciousness, which uses the formula of 4 days, or 4 spirits and forces, to build all things. And as Chukwu was reorganizing the universe from the shattering of the great tragedy, which was the death of Ne Chukwu, Chukwu looked upon all the Abara of the universe, wondering which one he would gift with Etu, Chukwu's all-knowing wisdom. He therefore challenged all the Abara to name the 4 market days, for whichever one knew the 4 market days was worthy of knowing all things. And among all the Abara, it was only one that emerged victorious. An Abara by the name of Agon was able to list the 4 market days in their correct order: Eke, Orie, Afo, and Nkwo. And therefore, the all-knowing mind of Chukwu, or the mind of the universe itself, and Agon became one. And it is through Agon, which is in all of us, that we have a link to this perpetual wisdom. Now I want you to pay close attention because I'm going to retell the story of Odachi Nebere piece by piece, but I want you to realize the pattern, which itself is the pattern of creation. And so while I'm telling the story, keep the 4 market days in mind. In the beginning of all things was Atun, a one-dimensional singularity that was all in all. And Atun was both singular and infinite. This was the phase of the universe, which we can call the source of our own, or the mother of all things, as the universe does not create from nowhere, but rather reorganizes and rearranges creation itself to bring about new realities. And therefore there is no beginning nor end of time, but perpetual transitions from one phase to another on different scales of existence. In the beginning of our universe, Atun separated into 2 elements as the Chi, or the conceptualizing force, which sparked the separation, divided itself from the greater whole, leaving 2 parts, Chi and Eke, Now, it is important to note that Chi and Eke are one and the same, the way you as Eke and your Chi are one and the same thing. You are the realization of your conceptualizing spark and a direct extension of its nature, the way your arm is an extension of your body, the way creation is the realization of the creator. Everyone therefore imagines or conceptualizes the relationship between Chi and Eke in their own unique way. Some will see them as husband and wife. Some will see them as the same thing, as is evidence in the interchangeability of names such as Chima and Ekema, a practice that has faded with the Christian focus on the word Chi and the inability to fit the concept of Eke into its own imagination. But in the beginning of creation, Eke arose first, and therefore among the 4 market days, it was Eke which came first. The first thing created was Eke. Eke is the first of the 4 market days, said to be the senior sister of the following 3. Eke is fire, light, and plasma. In ritual, Eke is represented by fire, or like every other market day, represented by the Udu, or the earthen vessel, a sacred symbol of the creative energy, which I'll explain shortly, but is very important to understand for those who have built an altar, as the Udu can be used to represent just about anything. Eke also represents darkness, as light and darkness are 2 spouses in the same cosmic house, which is Eke. So as Eke represents day, it also represents night. From Eke, we understand that it is light and darkness, passive and active, feminine and masculine, that form all things, which go to shape creation and the remainder of the 4 days. Our ancestors devised the art of Afa, or divination, which can be done in an array of ways, but the most accurate and existentially potent form is Afa Ugili. Now, explaining Afa Ugili in a segment won't do it justice, so if you want to see a video on Afa, comment below. In alignment with Eke, the element of creation and light, the cosmic house by which light and dark live, Afa Ugili has 2 parent principles. The first is Akon, which is when all nodes are negative, and the second is Obi, which is when all nodes are positive. Akon representing darkness, and Obi representing light. Flipping the Ugili therefore creates a dance between light and dark, positive and negative, creation and destruction, giving birth to all other messages and visions within Afa. Eke, being the cosmic house of light and darkness, is therefore the most sacred day in Igbo communities, and must be said first when listing the market days as not to offend her, as she is the most temperamental. Eke is a day of rest for all. Human beings for no reason should enter a forest or their community's forest on Eke Day. One does not speak ill against another on Eke Day, nor harbor or speak ill intention. Eke is a day of peace, and on a more intimate level, a day of forgiveness, previous transgressions within the 4-day week. Weddings are not held on Eke Day, nor are burials. Dibias do not work on this day, or if they do, they most specifically do not do divination on Eke Day. Titles are not taken on Eke Day, neither are initiations done. And this isn't because Eke Day is particularly bad or ominous. All of these actions show respect to the day, as the house whose binary nodes, light and dark, are necessary for all of creation. And as the first and most senior of the days, Eke is therefore the day of the divine. And because it is the day of the divine, human activities give way to the activities of the Abara on Eke Day. Eke is their time, and therefore has a high manifestation capacity. Dying on Eke Day was traditionally seen as the will of Chineke, which would cause people to avoid funerals of individuals who died on that day. I had the chance to speak to an elder from Umuahia who's in his 70s, completely unplanned during the making of this video. And I asked him about this, and he recalled a time where the common trend was, if you had a relative who died on Eke Day, families would lie and say that the person died on Orie to avoid the public shame or suspicion. Or if they died early enough in the day, they would lie and say the person died on Nkwo. So it was always said that, quote unquote, nobody dies on Eke Day. But even with Eke Day being exceptionally sacred and restful, the only activity a community permits during Eke Day is the procession of the Eke market. In ancestral community planning, or in communities, each community hosts one of 4 markets. One community will host Eke, a neighboring one will host Orie, a neighboring one will then host Afo, and then another Nkwo, creating a union of 4 towns, completely independent of each other, but united by the cycle of the market days. On Eke Day, all of the markets are closed except Eke. On Orie, the same. On Afo, the same. On Nkwo, it is the turn of the Nkwo community until it returns to Eke. Eke market still holds on Eke Day because the market is seen as neutral, equal ground between Mado and Mo, Both spirits and humans need the market for survival. As the saying goes, Mado na-azụ ahịa, mmụọ na-azụ ahịa. People buy from the market, and spirits buy from the market. As in ancestral thoughts, the flow of the market supersedes any community activity. And by community, I am including the dead and the forces of nature. And I'll explain why shortly. Eke is the day of Anyanwụ na Abara. Anyanwụ is the sun, but on a metaphysical level, the manifestation of the chi on the scale of nature, meaning that through the sun we understand the nature of the chi, and Abara are the rays which emit from the sun, or the manifestation of the Mmụọ of Chukwu Okike, which we know as Osebluwa, the spirit of the creator, or the spirit of creation itself. Because the universal pattern repeats itself again and again, each person is a composite of four things: chi, eke, Agụ, and Mmụọ. At the same time, Chukwu Okike is also a composite of these four things. Chukwu has a chi, which is what we refer to as Chukwu, Eze Chitoke, Olisa, and Chukwu Okike Abiyama. Chukwu has an Eke, which is the universe, a physical manifestation of creation itself. As the universe or creation is the physical body or physical existence of the conceiving spark. Chukwu has an Agụ, which is known as Ezumezu Agụ. Ezumezu Agụ is the full manifestation of Agụ, the Agụ which I'm specifically referring to when I say the universal mind. Ezumezu Agụ is represented by having four faces facing in four directions: Eke, Orie, Afo and Nkwo, the states which Agụ achieved once Agụ received Etu, Chukwu's infinite and total state of wisdom. And it is these four faces which makes Agụ complete and all-knowing. For this reason, Agụ, or a person's Agụ, is referred to as their full self. Ezumezu Agụ is important in the understanding of self within Odinani and Igbo, as all people have an Ezumezu, which is their total and complete mind, or capacity to be all-knowing and all-seeing. So if you're interested in the video on Ezumezu, let me know below. And like us, Chukwu has Mmụọ. The Mmụọ of Chukwu is referred to as Osebluwa. Osebluwa is the tide or vibrational frequency which gives the universe life. It is the cosmic universal spirit, or the spirit of the universe, the universal memory which holds life and makes existence a single and living thing. Now, I typically keep my own conclusions to myself on these videos. I'm more inclined to share them in the group study until I can confirm it elsewhere, which is a rule I made for this channel. But I have very strong reason to believe that Osebluwa is what we refer to when we say Alam Mo, and Eke is what we refer to when we say Alam Madu, meaning that all of Alam Madu is one fabric and all of Alam Mo is another fabric. And I can do a video on Osebluwa, which maybe goes into why I have this theory. So if you want to know more about Osebluwa, comment below. Eke is also the name of creation, the divine feminine half of Chineke, under the name of Eke Keruwa, or Eke which created the universe. And in the order of divine mothers, Eke is supreme, often envisioned as the grandmother of all. Eke Day is the universe's day, and what one sends into the ether through words and actions on this day have a greater capacity for manifesting into reality. Now, according to Odachi Nebere, the cosmic universal death account of creation, after the Chi separated from Atsu, which then created Eke, Chi built a four-walled chamber, Eke, Orie, Afo and Nkwo, where he secluded himself from his wife, Eke. Eke, in her curiosity, would wonder why her husband, or her other half, would seclude himself in a four-walled chamber known as Obi Chukwu. She would watch him as he would enter and exit the chamber, enter and exit the chamber, enter and exit the chamber, each time returning into the chamber backwards and exiting the chamber backwards. To occupy her time, she began weaving with a set of strings known as ete, cosmic strings, which form the fabric of existence. It is through ete that an individual knows their destiny, and through ete that all of creation is held together, which is why Eke is intimately associated with the concept of destiny and fate, or the Akaraka. Now, I covered this concept in my video, Ichuaja Explained, or Sacrifice Explained. So if you're interested, the link is below. Chukwu would enter the chamber over and over until finally Eke was overwhelmed by her curiosity. And as she watched her husband go in and out, Eke devised a plan. When Chukwu left, Eke arose and looked at what was within. Within, Chukwu had created Akun Odi, Akun being the negative, passive darkness in the Afa language, but also referring to a nest, and Odi being the Afa note with a positive light on top and a positive note on bottom, but two negative dark notes at the center. Akun Odi is equilibrium or stillness, a hyper-intense darkness from which things are created. Now, earlier I said that the market days can be represented using the Udu, or the earthen vessel, and you'll often see the Udu or pots used in ritual or in the altar. And this is because the Udu simulates the same cosmic, feminine principle as Akun Odi, the nest of manifesting darkness and equilibrium. When darkness is housed, its creative and manifesting properties are activated. This is the unspoken principle which gives creative power to the womb, the mind, the heart, the universe, and the Udu. For example, the inner or greater mind is known as Akun Uche, the nest of Uche, akin to Akun Odi or Apa Uche, the bag of Uche, which itself is the divine wisdom of the universal mind. It is the darkness of the mind that gives space for thought to exist and manifest, and it is from the darkness of the mind that all perception is made possible. The human head is therefore referred to as Odiaka in the Afa language, with Aka in Afa meaning spirit, or even God, and Odi being a place of seating or a place of keeping, as the two positive nodes in Afa seat or house the two dark or negative nodes within Odi, when Afa says Odi. Now one day, Chukwu left his chamber, and Eke opened the door and took a look inside. Chukwu then caught his wife meddling with his plan and became overwhelmed with a blinding rage. And this blinding rage led him into a frenzy. And in his frenzy, he tore his wife into 4 pieces, Eke, Orie, Afo and Nkwo. When his temper cooled, he realized what he had done. And in his grief, he began to cry. This gave birth to the second element in Ubochi Ano. Orie is the cosmic house of water. As Chukwu begins to weep uncontrollably, he floods existence with Oshimiri or Oshimirin, the source water or the source waters of salt. Orie is Oshimiri, Nemiri, or water itself. As the second daughter or Ulu of creation, Orie represents cleansing, renewal, rebirth, transition, purification, freedom, creativity, abundance, and wealth. Orie was born in a burst of passion, and much of what is associated with Orie is of that nature. In ancestral thoughts, an individual crosses 2 rivers in its cycle of birth, death, and reincarnation, which manifests on a physical plane as the paleness of a newborn baby and the paleness of a corpse. In the process of reincarnation, an individual must therefore cross Uwamiri, the water world, the realm of Orie, which itself is as vast and populous as the world we call our own. It is from Uwamiri that individuals, in their transition, meet Obanje spirits, those who belong in the world of water, but latch on to your cosmic essence in order to sneak into the world of earth. It is also in the transition that individuals meet Di and Nwunye Miri, or spirit spouses, individuals who either fall in love with you in the process of transitioning, or you make a pact of love or marriage with in the process, and therefore follow you into creation in order to rekindle this relationship, appearing in dreams and waking visions. I can do a video on spirit spouses if you're interested, so comment below and let me know if you want to see that video. Because Orie is a world where passions are greater than the rules that we recognize. Members of Uwamiri are notorious for their freedom of spirit, and this includes individuals whose market day is Orie. During your transition, you can also meet a great many of the spirits which will follow you throughout life in the form of Mwauzi, or spiritual teachers, and muses, which will move through the world with you, giving you extraordinary gifts for things such as business, music, art, dance, and other creative endeavors, as these are spirits you have formed a connection with, who through you exercise their talents onto the world. Now, the concept of muozi, or guiding and teaching spirits, go beyond owamiri, as many of your ancestors can be this, and you as an individual can deliberately choose spirits to play this role in your life. So if you're interested in a video on muozi, comment below. Orie is therefore a world rich with muses and gifts. Orie is also the element of renewal and ultimate purity. As the Ilu says, we use water to clean, but nothing cleans water. Water, when used in ritual, applies this nature to whatever is being done or manifest. The presence or application of water in ritual, therefore, brings about the energy of purification and cleansing, as well as that of creativity, especially for those who are linked to the market day of Orie. I personally think this is one of the reasons why individuals are particularly creative in the shower, but that's, again, my own conclusion. Now, if water is at all linked to your own creativity, comment below and let me know what you think. Orie is also represented in the form of Nzu. Nzu, when applied to the body, represents purity and innocence, which is necessary when approaching your superior, such as an ancestor or an abara, as it is said that or a child who washes his hands can eat with the kings. A spiritual specialist will apply Nzu to their body to represent purity, or the fact that the body or the part of the body being covered has not committed abominations or engaged itself in other crimes against others. Nzu can be applied to the feet to communicate that an individual has not walked towards evil or has not been on an evil path. When applied to the hands, it communicates that an individual has no hands in evil, has not committed evil with their hands. When Nzu is blown at an altar, it brings about the energy of cleaning and cleansing, washing away impurities that may have accumulated over time, as well as infusing life into the altar, one of Orie's gifts to the world, as it is said that miribund, or water is life. Purity is necessary when approaching one's altar or speaking to the ancestors, and this purity is one part of communicating, as it is the individual who possesses the akankumoto who is worthy from receiving from the universe, or the upright hand that is worthy of receiving from the universe and their ancestors. Because an ancestral thought, when the universe gives, it gives to the responsible person among the pack of those asking. That which comes from Orie is what makes the world and life sweet and enjoyable. And for reasons connected to this idea, much of what is offered to Orie, Nemiri, or the members of Uwamiri, are often sweets, such as sodas, candies, sugars, and bread, or sometimes jewelry, and things that shine or have a glisten to them, much like water. And because water is life, water is often a substitute for blood in many rituals, or offerings to Arushi, which accept it as a form of life in order to operate. The role of Nemiri, or water, is generally contained in the phrase Miriengwenyiro, or water has no enemy, because no matter what water does to an individual, they must return to water to sustain themselves. For this reason, in Odinani Igbo, it is regular for an individual to visit their local body of water, give her gifts of appreciation and praise, and spend time celebrating life and the world of Orie at their local stream, lake, or even ocean. Now, in most Igbo communities, the arushi that is central to life and which sustains them for generations is the central arushi of a community. This is the arushi by which the ofobodo, or the national oath, or the ofo of the country, is received. And 9 out of 10 times, this arushi is going to be dedicated to Anna, the earth. But for a select group of Igbo people, their central arushi is water. This group is known as the Oru among the Igbo people, a group of people who derive their sustenance from water or live on land which is owned by a local river. And so when the land is determined to be owned by a local river, the Ofobodo, or the national Ofo, is held by that river. In my own community, the main arushi is Afo and Nkwo, an arushi dedicated to channeling the Abara, or the spirit of the local river Njaba. She is the owner of the land, along with her manifestation in animal form, Eke Njaba, the river python. After Chukwu Okike covered Ne Chukwu, or creation, with the salty water of Oshimiri, something began to change. Because water is life, and because what is buried returns like a seed, Ne Chukwu, from the waters of Oshimiri, began the process of Iluwa, the return to existence. And it was then that she manifested as Anna, the earth we live in today. Now, in some versions of the story, Ne Chukwu dies in the process of giving birth to her first daughter, Anna, from the waters of the cosmic womb. Therefore, the third day in Igbo cosmology is Afo, or Earth. Afo is the life-giving space of the 4 market days. Afo is also the third day. Afo is the procreative space of the 4 market days, as well as the house by which Chukwu placed Ana, the earth, and Igwe, the sky. Afo is the life-creating and life-sustaining force. It is the house mothered by Ana, the earth, by which we source life from, the holder and keeper of life and law, the matron of the house of Afo, which is home to life itself. This space is fathered by her husband, Igwe. From this you get terms such as Nwafo, child of the soil, or most often translated as son of the soil, a term referring to a cultured or well-cultured individual, or a person who knows the laws of the land. This space is fathered by her husband, Igwe, and together they are sky and earth, the Afo space manifestation of the Chi and Eke pattern of creation. It is important to note that all human beings are children of Afo, as you are an earthling, and each of the market days represents a pathway or a door by which you enter Afo, or creation, through. So individuals will come through Eke, others will come through Orie, others will come through Afo, and others Nkwo. And these 4 paths manifest as the fact that you will be born on that day. And when you return to the world, it is that Iuwa, or universal stream, that you will use to enter the world again. The door you entered creation through will speak to your nature as a person, as well as the reason you came into creation. Ultimately, you are all coming into the same space, which is Earth, to be Nwafo, a child of Afo. Individuals born on Afo are said to be duty-oriented. They are inclined towards family and tradition, and have a strong internal sense of justice and balance. They have a connection to the earth, and thus acquire its attributes on the feminine end, and a connection to the sky on its masculine end. Attributes which are embodied in the nature of Amadioha, the manifestation of Chukwu's will in the house of Afo. Now, I have a video called Amadioha Explained, and it's one that I'm particularly proud of, so I'm going to put the link below. If you're interested, you can watch it. Now, the word Amara is particularly interesting in the Igbo language as well as in Igbo cosmology, because there's a surprising meaning that a lot of people are not aware of, but becomes very obvious when you study concepts such as Osebluwa or Anyanwu, and it goes beyond beauty. And I'll definitely be discussing it on a video on Anyanwu, the sun. So if you're interested, comment below. In Igbo mythology, human beings came into our current form of existence in the house of Afo. Ana, the earth mother, brought us into creation by sprouting 2 termite hills. It was then that Igwe, or Amadioha, the sky, struck each of those hills with a bolt of thunder, infusing them with life and the will of creation. From these 2 hills, man and woman emerged, and upon seeing the creation, Ana sprouted more hills. Igwe gave more bolts until the earth was populated by the human race. But while Afo was alive, she was still buried in Orie, which formed both her cosmic womb and her cosmic tomb. And so in the beginning, earth was covered by water. This was in the first world age, known as Ogaka. In the ancestral narrative of the earth and the story of the human race, time is broken into 4 ages, Ogaka being the first, Ogachi being the second, Oganwu being the third, and Ogazi being that which we live in today, the 4th. Now, I have a video on the 4 world ages, so if you're interested, the link is below. But in this age, which is Ogaka, the waters and the earth were one, and all things were muddy and imbalanced. Now, there's something that's always impressed me about Igbo cosmology, and if you pay attention, and I know many of you have caught it already, there's a pattern of creation that is always retelling itself in every age and era in a different way. It's always things starting as 1, separating and forming 2, drifting further away, and then separating again to form 4, and replicating, so on and so forth. So if anybody else has caught the pattern, then kudos to you. In this era, the earth and the waters were one, and this created imbalance, as this new life form known as humanity had no place to plant their feet and call home. To give order to the formless universe, Chineke breathed Ikuku Kamosu into the universe. Ikuku Kamosu are the winds of creation, by separating the earth from the waters, and from there justice entered the natural layer, or Afo, and from there the last day was born. This day is Nkwo. Nkwo is the element of wind, air, and vapor. Nkwo is also the cosmic house of justice and fate, known as Ogun. Nkwo is the cosmic balancer, the source of order in the universe. In ancestral thought, all facets of truth are in Afo. And Afo is not just a staff of justice, but also truth itself, as an Afo is a pact between two things, which makes what is agreed between them a reality. This can be the laws of the universe, or the laws of the land, known as Iwala or Alfana, as well as the laws of an individual's creation, the sacred rules you as an individual agreed to follow upon coming into creation, known as your Alfondo, your Afo of life. Now, if you're interested in the concept of the Afo and deciphering this idea of a pact that you made before coming into creation, check out my video Afo explained below. Every Afo is paired with Ogun, the powers that come with being in alignment with that Afo, as well as the punishment that comes from being out of alignment. These are the powers and punishments represented by Nkwo as Ogun, sometimes known as Ikwu Afo, the wind of the Afo. Nkwo, or the giver of order, in a universe which is, by nature, chaos. Nkwo is closely associated with the Abara Ekwensu, but most specifically is paired with the concept of Ogun, as most masculine Abara are manifestations of the concept of Ogun, and therefore Amadioha, Kalu Akano, Kamalu, and in some cultures Njoguji are all associated with this concept. And on the other side, most female Abara are connected with the concept of Afo. Now often you'll hear individuals say that Eke and Nkwo are masculine, while Orie and Afo are feminine. Now if you pay attention, Eke, which is light, fire, plasma, and anything of that nature, and Nkwo, which is air, wind, vapor, and so forth, are forces, while Orie and Afo are worlds. So you can live in water, and you can live on or in the earth, but you cannot live in wind. Wind exists as a force. You cannot live in light. Light exists as a force. Others will say that all 4 days are feminine, as they are not only represented as feminine in story, but all of them represent a cosmic market, and markets themselves are female. Now, I don't think it matters. Most people capable of conceptualizing the concepts at this level know why they're saying what they're saying, and their points are valid. But I am of the opinion that they are households. So within each of those households, there's a masculine and a feminine. And to me, if somebody says there's a woman in that house or there's a man in that house, they're not necessarily mutually exclusive concepts. But let me know what you think in the comments. The concept of Ikwu Afo therefore makes justice a natural element of the universe. In the eyes of our ancestors, the way we today would identify gravity, heat, light, weight, and inertia as the same. Justice in the ancestral worldview is not something that is exclusive to human ethics or the human mind, but something that exists independent of humanity, an element of nature unto itself, an animating force in the universe and something that is pursued and abided by in all things, within and beyond existence. And for this reason, justice extends beyond the reach of human relationships with each other. There is a justice between a people and a land, a justice between two rivers, a justice between sky and earth, and a justice between those people who are living and the people who are not living. An example of this manifesting in practice is the fact that an individual can own property in life and in death. Spirits can own property. Rivers can own land. An item given to a river by a human being and then taken by another human being without the permission of that river is considered theft. Breaking a pot dedicated to the earth is considered vandalism, and an irregular flood is considered a breach of jurisdiction by a river upon a land and against the people. For this reason, one of the core purposes of an arushi is service as a courthouse or a space of deliberation where the justice between a people and the element of nature that is being channeled by the arushi can be exacted. For example, an arushi dedicated to the land is a space that the earth and a people agree to meet at. The way an ancestral altar is also a neutral meeting space between you and your ancestors. And much of what is discussed at the altar are affairs in the maintenance of justice between all parties present, both visible and invisible. As Eke holds the elements of light, fire, and darkness, Orie holds water, pureness, creativity. Afo holds earth, life, family, and duty. Nkwo holds the power of wind, consequence, ogun, and justice, and many of the concepts that are necessary for exacting these things. This is represented by one of Nkwo's symbols, the feather. The feather in Igbo symbology represents purity and ascendance, the lightness of spirit and moral character necessary to ascend and be closer to the purity or the nature of Chukwu. The feather is the symbol of righteousness, specifically the feathers of the ugo, or the fish eagle, as well as the agu nkwo, the falcon. In Igbo mythology, the birds of the sky gifted the wise Mbe the turtle with their feathers so that he can join them in feasting at Obi Chukwu, as feathers are necessary for reaching Obi Chukwu through flight. But once reaching Obi Chukwu and seeing that Mbe was a con man, they took their feathers from him and cast him back to the earth, which caused the shell to shatter. And according to our ancestors, this is the reason why the shell of the tortoise is full of cracks. And within the Igbo market system, the idea of justice as an element of nature is applied, as market activity is a combination of commercial activity as well as social solidarity. Now, I want to explain the Isusu system and the general philosophy of the market, or economics in the Igbo worldview. But I think that the topic is extremely fascinating and deserves its own video. So if you want to learn about ancestral economics, which itself is an entirely separate economic philosophy from Western capitalism or Western socialism, go ahead and comment below. But the roots of our ancestral philosophy on economics and the market system can be seen in the story by which the market itself is founded. In the time of our foremothers, the idea of the market was unknown to the people of the world. People did not exchange with each other. Rather, everyone produced and everyone ate what came directly from their hands. People do not live long, nor know each other beyond their small family bands. Everyone lived in these small, closed societies, enclaves, where at best, they could appeal to family when they needed help, and no one else. Because of this, the people of the world did not travel, nor venture beyond their tiny enclave. They were therefore ignorant of the world and ignorant of the human family, as well as themselves. For as the Ilu says, a child who travels is wiser than a gray-haired person who does not. But some hands were more productive than others. One of note was the great Lolo Asaju, a woman of great intelligence and industry, who was able to create a surplus from her own farm. The people of her enclave knew her as a hard worker, and her ability for hard work was only rivaled by her generosity in the eyes of her people. So she produced more than she could hold, and from her bountifulness she gave to those in need. She gave and she gave until even neighboring enclaves began hearing about this generous, hardworking woman, and therefore gathered to receive what she had to offer. Lala Asaju began to see a multitude of people gathering, and one day she decided to fill her baskets with the produce of her farm, which were ede, cocoyam, ji, yam, okra, other vegetables that she would use to change the world on this day. She laid the baskets down, and they were so big they could be seen from a great distance. And from this great distance, the people scattered throughout the world did the unspeakable. They left their enclaves and came to her to receive their portion of her generosity. Her baskets were so rich and so deep that she gave what she could for 2 days straight. And as she gave, the women from surrounding enclaves gathered and were amazed and inspired by the generosity and industry of this great woman. So that when this great Lala asked them to bring their own wares and follow her example, they did just that. 3 other women joined in giving out their surpluses, and together the 4 gave what they could for an additional 3 days. And on the 4th day, more women had joined, and this was a great blessing because, as the Ilu says, having many hands at work is enjoyable, but having many mouths to feed is embarrassing. And as these women gathered, the people from around the world came to receive their portion of their generosity, to enjoy the jokes at the gathering and the conversation around the women. This spot was so filled with life and joy that those who came empty-handed began making promises. They promised to the women who gave them their surpluses that they will return and compensate the women in order to balance their generosity going and to keep the current of generosity going so that these women's baskets will never go empty. Amazed by this new culture or creation, the men of the community decided to build a shed for the women to protect them from the heat and the elements. And after finishing the shed, they stayed around the market to relax and exchange with the women, partaking in the life and joy they had created with this event. It was on Nkwo Day that Lolo, Asaju, brought out her wares for the first time. And so this center was known as Onu Nkwo, the mouth of Nkwo. And because of what she saw, the Abara of the land moved into the market to make that market her home and vowed to protect the market as her own. The Abara of the land decreed that Nkwo is a holy day for these people and gave the instruction to open this market every Nkwo day. This market is known as Nkwo Ibagwa. Now, it is important to know that every community has a story as to how the market originated among their people. Some of these stories are very popular, such as the story of the 4 travelers by the names of Eke, Orie, Afo and Nkwo. And many communities have the story by which these visitors come to them, teach them how to open the market, and give them the Ofoahia, or the Ofo of the market, which then makes their people have a sacred connection to business, trade, and commerce, and a God-given ability to excel in commercial activities. And in all of these stories, the coming of the market is a great blessing by which the community itself officially comes to life. As in the ancestral worldview, the market is a microcosm of the universe. What is seen in the market will repeat itself again and again throughout nature, and therefore understanding and partaking in the market is an act of universal alignment, a source of life, wisdom, and the current of progress. And that's it. This one took a little longer than normal, so I want to let you guys know that I do appreciate your patience. I'm currently moving states, and it's of course a very involved process, but I'm confident that videos will be more regular for the months to come. So if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. And as always, the best way to support is joining on patreon.com/TheMedicineShell. If you're interested in exclusive videos and group discussions, as well as my Odinani library that I use to study the ancestral tradition, everything I use for research is available on there. It's got hundreds of books and articles. And that being said, I want to give a shout out to the patrons that make this channel and this movement possible. Alea Boyo, Adalolo, Adaku Utah, Akachi Lamb, Alicia Joyner, Amechi Ekufu, Amaka Adogu, Armin Williams, Angel Anthony, Awulukao, Awele Madubuchi, Zachariah Okafo, Baba Imotep, Bissy Life, Cassie, Celeste Richmond, Center Moon B, Chara Williams, Charity, Amonwu, Chelsea E, Chike, Chimoge Ibe, Chinedu, Akunne, Chris Abani, Chukwuma Bartholomew, CK, Cozy, Didi, Dairies X, Dion, Temne, Ebuka, Okoli, Emi, Emeka, and Weruzo, Erica McBee, Eunice Agwim, Jory Bryant with Symbolize LLC, Gerard Miller, Grace, Jada Renee, Liz, Malachi Lee, Michael, Michael Ouna, Nadia Denton, Netter Arts, Ngozi Onoha, Nia Marie, Nick Crenshaw, Nina Nwafia, Nwaka, the Igbo Cyber Shrine, Obele Osisi, Ofuora, Olama Obara, Olisemeka Okapo, Princess Kaha, Rachel Nwokoro, Renee Bruce Miller, Ross Jones, Sarah Nwafo, Sharika Regina, Simon Julian, Stephen Chin, Suva Monte, Tab, the Homegirl Healer, the Young Black God, Tony, Tanya L, Trilla, Uchenna Campos, Urena Kara, Venus Freebird LLC, and Victor. As always, this is Derek, father-in-law with The Medicine Shell. Thank you.